Yes.
I think we'll start right now. Yes. Can I, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes,
Okay. Namo Om Vishnupadaya. Namo Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, text number 27. We're reading this sloka now. Viprakena jata channam Rauravera jitena cha Vishushya talurudakam Tata bhutam ayachata Viprakirna jata channam Rauravena janena cha Vishushya talurudakam Tata bhutam ayachata. Synonyms: Viprakirna, all scattered; Jata, Achannam, covered with compressed long hair; Rauravena, by the skin of a stag; Ajinena, by the skin; Cha, also; Vishusyat, dried up; Talu, palate; Udakam, water; Tata bhutam, in that state; Ayachata, asked for. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: the sage in meditation was covered by the skin of a stag, and long compressed hair was scattered all over him. The king, whose palate was dry from thirst, asked him for water. Purport: the king, being thirsty, asked the sage for water. That such a great devotee and king asked for water from a sage absorbed in trance was certainly providential. Otherwise, there was no chance of such an unique happening. Maharaja Parikshit was thus placed in an awkward position so that gradually Srimad Bhagavatam could be revealed. Om Ajnanatimiram Dasya Jnanam Janasalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gada Mahyam Dadadi Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Utapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam Sha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyabadi Pachatya Deshatarine Vancha kalpatarubhyacha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll read the translation once again, translation purport. The sage in meditation was covered by the skin of a stag, and long compressed hair was scattered all over him. The king, whose palate was dry from thirst, asked him for water. Purport. The king, being thirsty, asked the sage for water. That such a great devotee and a king asked for water from a sage absorbed in trance was certainly providential. Otherwise, there was no chance of such a unique happening. Maharaja Parikshit was thus placed in an awkward position so that gradually Srimad Bhagavatam could be revealed. So in this, we'll just discuss today the rest of the 25 minutes, whatever the time we have. Certain aspects like what is a meditation, and then trance and transcendental meditation, and so on and so forth. As Srila Prabhupada touched on these points and some other elsewhere in the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and in his purports. So here the meditation is, what is meditation actually? It is said here, the definition of a meditation is a practice where an individual uses a technique such as mindfulness or that is mindfulness or the kind in a particular object, thought or activity to train and get awareness and achieve a mentally clear and mentally clear, calm and calm state of meditation is practiced in numerous religious systems. That is what actually this is the meditation in clear terminology, what it is, dictionary definition, what it gives is so much. So in this, we have different organizations having different their own practices that we are not going in those details, but we have the transcendental meditation, this mantra meditation, that so many people have so many different practices. But again, in the trance, what is actually trance is a half conscious state characterized by an absence of response to external stimuli, typically as induced by hypnosis or intended by the meditation. And here Prabhupada said sometimes in somewhere else, like transcendental meditation, they say so many things and they just, what are they meditating on? Nothingness. But ours is very practical. So long we just take the beats and we chant Hare Krishna mantra in groups or in even more than one, it is a Sankirtan, and one individual even chants in alone or in seclusion. That is also, but then we are connected with the Supreme by the sound vibration, the vibrating the sound, the transcendental sound, the name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We get connected with the Supreme and we clearly hear that, and then we have that the feeling of having connected with Krishna. If not, if in the initial stages it may not be, but then a gradual process, there are chances that we really experience that kind of thing. But then there are several stages and several devotees have experienced that. Of course, we're still trying for that. That is what is our mantra meditation is. Then here, there is again a transcendental meditation. What it is said is a form of silence. That is a form of silence. That is what this transcendental meditation others deem to be practically possible as, and that Srila Prabhupada was very, very, very hard about this sort of things like that. Yes, transcendental meditation, they name on that. They do so many other things like that. But in one of the yogi kind of thing, then in his ashram, he said, yes, Prabhupada, Swamiji, can you see how these people looking so fresh after 2 hours meditation? Yes, why not? 2 hours nice sleep they had, that's how it is. Definitely they will be fresh. That is what other kind of practitioners, then they have that kind of thing that they, when they name it to be that meditation, transcendental meditation, and so on and so forth here. Then in this regard, we have the other thing that the providential, that is how the providence, this providence is a very, very unavoidable thing, and it is just really very hard for any mortal being to just get away from that. This reminds me of the something, the ancient Greek, there is Sophocles, is the ancient Greek playwright. He had an Oedipus Rex. There is one, we had this in post-graduation. The character is very, I mean, so these characters, what comes in this is so unimaginably kind of thing. And he is renowned, very renowned, the ancient Greek poet, playwright, is a Sophocles. The story goes on like this. The child borns, the child take birth, and then the oracle says that this child is going to kill his own father and marry his mother. It's so abominable kind of thing. And that was like we hear in parallels to Bhagavatam, that when Kamsa was driving the chariot of his sister Devaki and Vasudeva after their marriage, and then an invisible voice speaks from the sky saying that, oh, Kamsa, the eighth child of this sister is going to be cause of her death. Then similarly here, after hearing this oracle, they would, then the king, the person asks his wife to abandon the child. But whatever it is, the reason that, as you know, the mother cannot just abandon the child just like that. She or the nurse, both of them take pity, and then so unable to kill the child or not, then they just abandon the child, leaves the child in the forest and comes back to the palace. In that, the boy was in the forest when seen by a shepherd, and he takes the boy to his home and raises him. And after that, he hands over the same boy to the king, who was the issue. I mean, he had no children of his own. So he was just looking and, very morose. And the shepherd takes this boy to his palace and hands over to him, and he was raised as their own son. And after that, again, the oracle says that this boy is going to be the cause of your death, and he will marry your wife. And then knowing this, but the king, he just was contemplating on what to do. And then what he does, this boy, when he hears his, he grown up to be a youthful man, and he leaves the home thinking that it is, how abominable is that, myself killing my own father and marrying my mother. So he leaves the home. Just he goes on just wandering all over the planet kind of thing. And then after few days, he just encounters some the passengers, I mean, on the passers-by, they were discussing about the plague in that city where he was just entering into. And that plague is the cause for the, just because the king is impious king, and then this is how that plague has struck on the city, and then so many people are dying. And to put an end to that, is the remedy was said that that king must be killed. And then this man, the youthful man, is just saying that, we should do something for this, and stopping killing when the people, so many people subject to the plague and then being killed. So I should do this thing. And he just, fights with that king and kills him. And after that, he ascends the throne. And then what happens was, as a matter of right, that kind of thing, that queen, who was, means the person who the king, he was killed by this person, young man, and then he had to accept her as his wife. And that's what happens. After that, again, in a dramatic kind of thing, the oracle, another oracle said, this is, the person is a very heinous, and there's going to be very bad kind of consequences in the state in a few months later. So knowing this, he just sends for an thing like that, so another person to find these facts about this, how it is that, or if they're just trying to plot against me, all that. But anyway, ultimately, there's a long story, but then we come back to this. It is what happens was he understands that his wife will tell him, trying to pacify him, no, 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 do not worry about this. This is not something really happening, because it was also foretold in the earlier things that my son was going to be killing my husband and marrying me. So that did not become true. So why do you worry about it? Then he makes him to think what has happened is something like that. It is so he sends to this the king, the previous the kingdom where he was raised by as a foster son. He understands that finally that he was not his biological father, or those were not his biological parents. And then he understands ultimately this is what I think what was foretold in the providence, like that, he would kill his father and marries his mother, understanding that he becomes in the by the time the Jocasta, his mother, also understands this is what has really happened. The oracle has come true, really, and she goes to the palace and hangs herself, and he runs into the palace to find a sword to kill himself. Then finally, what he does, he plucks off his eyes, both eyes, and then goes into the forest just to stay just like that until his death. So it's really that this guy, this Sophocles, is a Greek writer, is very famous for his tragic narrations, not narrations, the playwright. So this is one of these topmost one that one is a great fame and name for his tragic stories. But coming back to that, our in Bhagavatam, elsewhere we have similar stories like that, the Providence. There are certain, in the ninth canto, we have the story of Yayati and Sarmishta and Devayani. These are all our characters in Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll just, and the rest of the time, we'll just talk about that. See, Kacha was the son of the Devaguru. So then Brahaspati, and Brahaspati is well versed with all kind of things, but there is one, the Shukracharya, who is the guru of the demons. He was expert in Sanjivani mantra. Sanjivani is that Mrita Sanjivani, the person who's dead can be brought back to life by using this mantra. So then in the battle between Devas and Asuras, and this was happening every time, and these Asuras are getting again born back, means coming to life by the capacity of the Shukracharya, the well-versed with his all magical kind of Sanjivani mantra. And this they wanted them also, they with us, the Brahaspati's son Kacha was sent to just to the ashram of Shukracharya. But Shukracharya accepts him as his disciple and tries to just keep him all that, but he was in his ashram. And then demons were very much worried. Okay, there must be something really a plot behind this. He's coming to us because his father is equally capable, but then this is the only thing which he is lacking. So maybe this is one thing that they would like to have it from Shukracharya. So knowing all this, thinking that these people are very cautious and trying to just find an opportunity where they can put an end to him. And once he goes to the forest for cattle grazing, and then after this thing in the evening, all the cattle comes back to the ashram, and they were, but then the Kacha was not found to be. Then Devayani is the daughter of Shukracharya, was very much fascinated and in love with Kacha, but Kacha has no intentions as such. He was a very good student, doing all that things what is to be supposed to be doing for the master or the sage Shukracharya. He was doing all in all his capacity, best of his ability, he was discharging all the functions. But then knowing this, and Devayani goes to his father, saying that, her father, saying that, Father, Kacha had not come back. The cattle have come back, but he is not to be seen. Then he pleads for his father, just do something. Then he sees, and then he understands that Kacha was killed in the forest by these demons. Then using his technique of Sanjivani mantra, then he brings him back to the life. Then it so happens again after Couple of days pass, and again they do the same thing. Then again, Shukracharya revives him. Then after a couple of months, again, these people, what they do this time, so every time this is the repeated happening, it is happening every time. So we must do something which he cannot revive him in such a way that we must do something. So what they do this time, they kill Kacha and burn him, and the ashes were made into powder, and they give a kind of intoxicant to Shukracharya. Shukracharya accepts that, and we were just sleeping. And then this time Devayani goes and then wakes our father. Father, this is Kacha is not to be seen again. Then he just sees in his meditation, he finds that this boy is in his womb, inside his stomach, in the form of this, and he understands everything and he finds. So what can be said now? It is danger for his own self. So he tells his daughter, Devayani, see, look, either means you can have one of us. If I revive him, I will not be there. If I don't do that, you are not happy. So what can be said? She wants, I don't know what you're going to do. I want both of you to be available, or that is what I want. So then Shukracharya, in his stomach, the Kacha, all these ashes over there, he teaches him Sanjeevani mantra in his stomach, and then he asks him to come back because he has to tear open his stomach and come out and revive Shukracharya. He does the same way, the way it is like that. So at some point of time, when this is, of course, he's wanting to go back to the demigods to join his father, but then Devayani just tells, no, you can't. You have to marry me. I love you so much. He said, no, no, no. It is your father is as good as my father. He is my teacher. How can I marry you? You're my sister. And another way also, I just come out of his stomach, and he gave me birth, another birth. He is my father as well as you also. So I can't do that. It is against the principles. Then Devayani curses him, saying that you have not heeded to my request, and the technique of coming here is solely for the purpose of learning Sanjeevani mantra. So you can't use that mantra. It won't be fruitful. When you use that, that can't just give you the result. So he curses. And then counter cursing happens. Of course, in our case here, coming back to our original sloka here, in this, as we know, the Brahmin boy was a very playful boy. He was about 7-8 years old, as a son, Shringi's son. So that is just like that. That's what in the purport just says, that the Brahmins were so powerful. They were able to curse just even as small boy as he was, like, what, 8-9 years old, he could just curse. And even the Parikshit Maharaj is equally capable of cursing, but then he did not do. Just like that, the moment it was told to him that you've been cursed to die in 7 days, he at once relinquishes all his complete entourage, his kingdom, wife, children, and entire paraphernalia, everything he leaves and comes at once, thinking that this is an arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he adheres to those kind of things, and he comes back to the forest, and just we know the later part of the thing, Shukadeva Goswami speaking Bhagavatam to him. So this providence like that, just otherwise how this was, the Srimad Bhagavatam would come to be available to us. So that's what it happens here. But here it is like this, and because Devayani cursed Kacha, that he can't use that, and even if he uses that, that will not be fruitful. As a matter of that, he can teach that to every one of those the demigods of them, so that they all will be able to use this Mrita Sanjeevani mantra. That way, it comes to be a different, like this becomes an advantage for Kacha for using this to everyone, teaching this to everyone, like that. And similarly here, again, we have the same episode like Sarmishta and Devayani. Devayani, as we have just heard about this is the daughter of Shukracharya. Sarmishta is the daughter of King Vrishaparva. Vrishaparva, these two go into the forest to just take bath in a lake. All Sarmishta had her entire, because she was a princess and she had all her maid servants, so many of them. and almost so many of them. And then Devayani was also there, and Sarmishta and Devayani, they were all just in the water sporting. And in the meanwhile, they find Lord Shiva on his bull carrier, Nandi. It was a Parvati, they were just passing by that side. So seeing that, they didn't want to offend, and they immediately come out to wear their clothes. And Sharmista, unfortunately, or in a hurry, then she just puts on Devayani's clothes. Devayani just gets in a furious, and she's, how dare you do that? We're a Brahmin and we are highly respectable in the society. And because of our father's mercy and blessings and all that, your father is a king, and you are enjoying all these princely properties and princely facilities just because of my father. How dare you do that? And Sarmishta also not in any way less. She just says, you're all just saying on our mercy. My father is giving you all facilities, and just because of that, you talk to me like this. And then she just pushes in anger, fist of anger, she pushes Devayani into the well. And she was naked in the well and just trying to look for some help. And she goes back to the palace, Sarmishta. In the meanwhile, Ayati was on a hunting feet, and then he just happens to pass by that way. And there's a providence, like you can say that, as we're talking about the providential thing. And he just comes to the well to drink some water. And then when he comes and he sees this girl, Devayani, in the well, and she just, hurry, how is that you here in this? Then she just, he first of all opens his upper garment and hands over to her to cover her body. And then he helps her getting out of the well. And Devayani says, since you touched me, my right hand, and you pulled me with my right hand, and you have to marry me. I can't, yeah. But then Kacha also cursed her, since you are just without any reason, you just cursed me, you can never marry a Brahmana. That's what it is. So, and this is here it happens, and because of the curse like that, she says, no, you have to marry me. So then she goes back to the hermitage and tells Shukracharya as to what has happened. And Shukracharya is very angry, and then he was coming. I think we're nearing the time, I think, Prabhu. Lingaraj Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, that's, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I'll wrap up in a few minutes then. So then he comes, and then he just tells you have to marry my daughter. And then because he's Sukracha is the spiritual master, then he accepts her as this thing. But you also, and she just, Devayani was very, not only that, she tells the Sharmista has to be my maid servant for entire rest of my life, with her all maid servants, so many of them. But then what could be said, because the Rishabharva had to agree, and then Sharmista also had to agree, because it is her father's spiritual master. And finally it happens so, and then anyway it unfolds like that. Then Yayati also just Yayati also, no, he was fascinated with this Sharmista, the beautiful girl and the princess. And before that itself, the Sukracharya tells you should not have any relationship with the Sharmista, but this finally it happens even, and for that Ayati was cursed, you will lose all your vitality, and all that you will be invalid. And then he prays, see, I'm your son-in-law, I have to be with your daughter. How can you do that for me? He said, okay, if that is the case, you can exchange your youth with someone. And he has 3 sons, and out of all that, the Puru was the youngest son. He accepts to give his youth to his father, and after having enjoyed for so many years, he understands there is no end to this kind of sense gratification. And that is another moral story for all of us, in the sense that it gives. Anyway, so that tends to be like that. All these providential things that is referred to this happened like this. These are similar stories that happened due to the providence. So then I think we end here. So any questions or comments? If there are no questions, comments,
maybe we'll wait for a few seconds, Prabhu. I don't know.
Okay, that's up to you. I leave it on to you now. That's, yeah.
I mean, one thing I was liking, the will of providence is so strong. One
Yeah,
will never be able to
yeah,
stop.
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
was
I've seen. Yes.
I was just remembering the story that Prabhupada tells, Prabhu. I mean, the death personified. Some person is in Baghdad. He goes to a market to buy something, and
Hmm.
he meets the death personified. And
Uh-huh.
then he gets scared and comes back to the master and says, "No, I am scared. I want to go through somewhere." And then
Yeah.
he gets a fastest horse and he goes to a nearby city. 2 hours
Yeah.
drive. 2 hours
Yeah.
ride.
Uh-huh.
He goes back and master sees the death personified and says, "Why are you here?" No, no,
Yeah.
I was supposed to meet this person in 2 hours so and so city, but why I'm thinking, why is he here?
Yeah.
Right? So that's how it is. I mean, it's
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And another thing, yes, yes, because we have in this also there is something like no Yamaraj or yeah, there's a small bird off to the other side of the seven oceans kind of thing. The small bird, and then Yamaraj happens to see that, and then he smiles. And he smiles, and this bird gets very scared. Oh Lord, Yama is smiling at me. What is then? She was worried, and Garuda asks, "Why are you worried? What's the problem?" See, Amaraj asked me, Amaraj, while after he's having seen me, he smiled. So I am scared. My life is in danger. Okay, don't worry.
Mm,
Amaraj can't reach you. So Garuda, which is impossible for this bird in so many hundreds of lifetimes, or that he just okay, sit on me on my back. He transfers that bird to the other side of the oceans. Then that he puts it on a tree, and there is what is that? Some the forest, the animal which is on the tree that was the prey for this,
mm,
and that is what that it happens.
mm,
So you see, by itself it is not the bird is not to reach in any way there. But then that is what made Lord Yama say, "How wonderful creation, my Lord! How you plan it in such a way that it is here. How can it dry here? How can it happen? That's had to meet its end. How can this be possible?" That's what Yamaraj was smiling with a smile with that reason. But this is how it happens, you see that. So it is invincible. The providence is really, really very no other, I mean, the mortal being can just avoid that kind of thing. Anything else, even Lord Brahma, whatever it is said, even to that the situation that is it's impossible for any of us or anybody else to do that except the supreme personality of God. It is really yes.
yeah, but the problem, Prabhu, I mean, from my side, I mean, at that moment, accepting that something is good. I mean, either good or bad. I mean, from
Yeah.
mostly everything is good, right? From the Lord's
Yes, yes,
perspective.
yes. Of
So, I mean,
course,
taking that as a good thing at that moment is not easy,
yeah, of
right?
course.
So
But
we,
then
we keep
once
trying.
surrender, see now in this case, we see Parikshit Maharaj. Because
Yeah,
the
even in.
moment he understands, because he is, that is what is that the Vishnu Rathas. Vishnu Ratha means that totally surrender to the Supreme Personality of God's will. It come what may. It is He is my savior. Whatever either healing or like whether we say Aslishyava Padaratam Pinastamam Adarshana. You kill or you trample me or you give your darshan, whatever it is you, my Supreme Lord. So when one comes to that consciousness or that understanding, it is otherwise not possible to just think that okay, come what may. But only when the people are just totally, when we think he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is his will and pleasure, whatever it is, whether good or bad, it is all he is cause of all causes. When one comes to that kind of understanding, that is really it makes it possible for us to just.
Okay, Prabhu,
Is that
thank you.
okay?
Yes,
We'll
Prabhu, thank you.
wind up, right? Okay.
I
Hare
don't know
Thank
if
you.
anybody has
Krishna,
any. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
Okay. The
Please accept
the
my, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to
encyclopedia of Nepal Bhagavatam.
no, I
Yeah.
mean, no,
Yes,
oh,
please.
Prabhuji. I mean, it was absolutely very intriguing stories, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope there will be more story time later, Prabhuji. So
Actually, I am
there is
going
a
for.
famous line in English.
Uh,
There is. Mm. There is providence in the fall of a sparrow or something
yeah.
like that.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
a
Yes.
famous poetic line.
Truly, yes. That's
It's
yeah.
amazing, amazing
Thank,
stories. Thank
thank
you
you.
very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. So anybody else has anything, please, otherwise we'll close down. It's 8 past something, like 6 minutes past 8 o'clock. Okay, Prabhuji,
Thank you, Prabhu.
Lingaraj Prabhu, thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Vancha kalpatarubhya kripa sindhu bhyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha ananta koti vaishnava bhakta